So you wanted to know when I first got my greetings to go into the service?
Yeah, we want to hear that. All that.
It was roughly March the 18th, 1943.
Okay.
And we were sent to New Cumberland Depot or Reception Center right outside of Harrisburg. And from there we got our greetings as to where we were to be sent, and that was to Camp Butner, North Carolina, which is right there at Durham. I was there for 10 months.
This was basic training?
I was in the infantry, the 78th Lightning Division, they called it. The general was Parker, and we called him Sparky Parker and his lightning bugs, because the patch we had was a half of a moon, and it was a red with a white lightning strike through it.
Huh.
On an angle like, and so we just called him Sparky Parker and his lightning bugs, which is our division 78. And after 10 months of being in the infantry and all that marching, that I decided that wasn't for me. So at that time we were allowed to go into Durham and take a air cadet examination. I think it was about 10 of us, and I don't know why, I must have guessed right, because I think it was only 2 of us out of 10 passed it. And that got me into the Air Corps. And we were sent down to Miami Beach for 5 days of testing as to whether you'd be a pilot or a navigator, bombardier, or what have you. And there at that time, it was pretty much towards the middle or towards the latter part of the war, so they're flunking out 70% of us, and I happened to be one of them. So then they asked me whether I wanted to go back to the infantry or the aerial gunnery school. Well, I'd been crazy to go back to the infantry, which I didn't care for in the first place. So I said, I'll go to aerial gunnery school. So, okay. So after a few days, they told us where we were going, and I think they sent us from there to Amarillo, Texas. That was the air base there. And we just sat around, did KP and that for a while. And they sent us from there to Salt Lake City, Utah. Why, I don't know. I was there for a little while. And then they had some openings at Las Vegas for gunnery school, and that's where they sent us. And we were there on KP for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or even a month before they started our training. And that's where I trained for aerial gunnery school. You had so many hours in the air, so many on the ground. And from there we were sent to Avon Park, Florida for our overseas training. And that's where well, first I'm ahead of my story. We were sent down to Tampa at the Plant Park. And there we formed our crews. And I met the rest of them. And we were sent to Avon Park, Florida for overseas training. And I was there, I don't know how long, for maybe about a month and a half, and they decided to do away with bombardiers, and they decided also that assistant engineers would no longer be on the top turret, but in the waist. So that meant they shipped me to another plane with another crew, so I went through it all again. And from there we were graduated from that, and we went up to Hunter Air Force Base.
Did you go through that training as a unit? Everybody in that one plane was together?
Yeah, we stayed together. And,
so that's why you have that one photograph of all of you together.
Right.
You stayed together the whole
yeah.
time.
And we, let's see, we went up to Hunter Air Force Base in Savannah, Georgia, and we picked up a new B-17 Flying Fortress G, which was the latest at that time. They hadn't come out with the B-29s yet. And we took that plane, we flew it the northern route overseas. In other words, we went up to Bangor, Maine. We landed there and refueled, took off, and we went up and we landed at Goose Bay, Labrador. And that was really bad there. It was like 30 below zero, and snow cleaned up over the Quonset huts. They had one runway open for landing and takeoffs. And we were there overnight. And from there, then we took off and we flew over, and we were forced down at Reykjavik, Iceland. The weather was so bad, and we were there for, I think, 17 days before we could take off again. And we went from there, and we flew to Valley Wells.
Now, what time of year was that? Was that
And
summer?
that was in January.
January. January of what?
That would be
year was it?
45, 1945.
Okay.
So that's the reason the weather conditions were so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're practically bad all the time, I guess, up there in Labrador. And so when we left Reykjavik, Iceland, we flew over to Valley Wells, landed our plane there, and they just had thousands of brand new B-17s there, just sitting there. And then from there they took
Now,
us.
how did those planes get there? Did they ship them on ships?
No, each crew flew their own plane over, a brand new one. And they landed them there, and then they shipped them to their base where they were going to take off to do their bombing. And
Were you kind of amazed when you saw all these planes?
yeah, and I thought, well, gee, we're going to get a brand new B-17.
Because you saw all those.
Yeah, so we went to our base, and then, wouldn't you know, they assigned us to an old B-17 modified F. It had 95 missions on it, and we were in the 95th bomb group. That's the reason I remember that.
Yeah.
Uncle Bud, what was the first time you were in a plane? What's the first time you actually flew?
Las Vegas, the gunnery school.
So you knew ahead of time you were going to go for gunnery school because you hated the infantry.
Yeah.
And you were brave to get on that plane and
Yeah, well,
Take
you
that
had
up.
to pass your gunnery school, both written tests and also flying. And if you got sick, I don't know how many times flying, then you flunked out. Well, I got sick a lot of times, but sometimes I regurgitated, sometimes I didn't. And if you did, you regurgitated in the bomb bay doors. And when you landed, as hard as it was, you had to clean them out, clean everything out. And that was terrible. But anyhow, that's where I graduated from.
They didn't give you any medication to keep you from getting airsick?
I don't think they had anything then. So then we had, I forget how many practice missions from the base there in England. And we used to fly like over across the English Channel and into Belgium, where we knew there wasn't any enemy planes or anything, just to get the feel of it, you know, and to coordinate with other planes. In other words, we'd almost be wing to wing, almost touching each other, you know. And the closer you could stay together, the better off you were, because you had more firepower within that certain range, see. And no German plane could break through. And they were crazy to try it. Because you had in a squadron, like I say, I forget how many planes. And so, anyhow, you want to stop that until he gets back?
No, you know what? Let's hold the map up.
Oh.
Did you do this already? So let's ready for that. And let's see. I'm going to look through the camera.
Which one you want?
Okay, I'm going to turn this off till we get started. We have a map of southern England there, right?
Yeah.
Bob, you want to hold it on the other side for him? Aunt Lois, maybe you could.
Is that all right like that?
Mm-hmm.
You go.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I could hold this so you can have it up on there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is southern England, this is France over here.
Right,
English
yeah.
Channel.
Yeah. And we were supposedly between Norwich and Ipswich, right there. A town called which is right here.
Where is London from where your finger is now? Which way is London?
Right there.
London is straight south.
Oh, okay. There's London. And
there's
Ipswich?
Ipswich and Norwich.
okay, which are northeast of London.
So on your practice
Yeah.
runs, you would go from
We'd go across the channel there.
over across Belgium, over
Like,
here.
yeah, over the channel to Belgium, and
Okay. Actually, we have that here.
you should have it there.
Yeah. This is a map of Europe. So we can see all of Great Britain here,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Here's London, and we were up in here somewhere.
Well, you're over in here, right? This was Norwich,
Yeah, Norwich.
Ipswich. Probably that's down there. Okay, you
No.
fly from here
Yeah.
out over the channel.
Yeah, across here.
Okay, this is Belgium down here.
And where would Germany be on that?
Germany? Right. Be right in here.
Okay.
Yeah, well, up here would be West Germany.
Right in here.
Yeah, right next to Belgium.
Okay.
So that was just practice that far, right?
Yeah, we just went so far over into Belgium and turned around, and that practice missions. And sometimes we'd even come down this way, where they knew there wasn't any enemy planes or anti-aircraft, flak as we called it. And then after so many of those practice missions, then we went on a real mission.
Okay, your first mission then
It
you went.
was up in northern Germany somewhere. I don't know what it was now.
Okay.
But then our second mission, which was
We can get that map of Germany.
I could look at it, but I still wouldn't know whether it was like Dusseldorf or. Seems to me it was up the northern part here. I don't know for sure whether like Bremen. It was one of these up here in the north.
Okay.
Our first mission. And then
Now your first mission, your mission was to drop bombs on whatever city
Yeah.
they told you. Okay, and that one went off without a hitch. You did.
there's no
Tell
problem.
us how many people were on that plane now. This is the crew that you trained with in Las Vegas.
Yeah, there's 9 of us on
9.
there.
Okay.
And that, like I told you before, the co-pilot didn't go along on that first mission. They had an experienced pilot to go with our pilot, to more or less show them the ropes and everything, what to do, what not to do. And so when we come back, I don't remember whether that was like March the 6th or what, but then March the 9th is the second mission we went on, and that was the one where we were shot down over Frankfurt, Germany.
All right, so that was your second mission. We can point out on your target, right?
It was, we were hit at Nantes. We were hit there at Nantes trying to bomb Frankfurt, Germany, on the Rhine. And after we got hit, he turned around and tried to make it back over the Rhine, and we got as far as St. Gotthausen, which is right there. It was very close to the Rhine. I'd say within about 2-3 miles, maybe 5 at the most.
Okay. Why did you want to get across the Rhine?
Well, because the Americans were on the other side.
So that would have been safety.
Yeah, we knew, we were briefed before we ever took off that where the Americans were, or the Allies, from the northern France all the way down. And we knew we were on the other side, because they had crossed over and captured Koblenz, Germany. I think heard that name.
So
we
you were
knew.
that close to safety, but tell us about when you were actually hit. What what engines were hit.
Oh, okay.
What you had to do on the plane before it landed.
Oh, all
What
right.
about,
Well,
start with the date. What day was this?
March the 9th, 1945. And we were hit around 10 o'clock in the morning. And like I say, we couldn't go on, we couldn't take evasive action once we were on the bomb run. Only after you dropped your bombs on the bomb, and you got to your target and dropped your bombs, then you could take evasive action. Till then, you couldn't. And we knew by continuing on the bomb run, we were going to get hit because we saw the flak. That you heard the expression, it was so thick you could walk on it. Well, it was pretty thick that morning. And we flew right into it, got hit, number 3 engine, and it pretty well destroyed that whole engine. Whether all of it came off, I don't remember for sure, but a lot of it did. And we got hit, the pilot said the bell out.
So 2 of the guys did, right? Two
Pardon?
of the guys bailed out at that time?
4 bailed out.
4 bailed out.
The radio man bailed out, and the radar man was in the radio room. I saw both of them bail out. And the engineer, which is up next to the pilot in the top third, he bailed out, and the tail gunner. The tail gunner no sooner bailed out when me being in the waist, I looked, and I saw the direct hit on just the part where he was sitting. In other words, the whole tail didn't get blown off, but just that one part where he was sitting in the twin 50s. And then
When they got hit, was it like an explosion?
well, well, you've flown enough to know that when you hit an air pocket, it goes like that, you know. Well, that's what's just thud, a real heavy thud like. And of course the bang, because there was no insulation in those planes. We had, there was fire extinguishers in those engines where you could hit to put out the fire, and it did put out the fire in one of the engines. We had 3 engines left after the one that was hit. So, in the meantime, after we were hit and we jettisoned our bombs, he started to turn around. And how was that? Before he turned around, we got hit the second time, and anyhow, and then the number 2 engine, it burned up from because there's so much pressure. And then the number 1 engine started to windmill, and we had 1 engine left, and that conked out on us. So then, well, anyhow, in the meantime, the navigator come back, told us to hang on. He's going to try and crash land the plane. So I didn't bail out, like I said before. I was telling you, I hit the emergency handle on the door at the waist, and me, like a dumb fool, trained not to stand in front of it, you know, when I pulled it, because the slipstream pulled you right out. And as I did, I felt the stall starting to go, and I grabbed the up overhead to keep me from going out. And
Because you didn't have a parachute on.
no, I didn't, which I should have. And the reason I didn't bail out is I wanted to help get the lower ball man out. And he wanted to know, he's a little red-headed boy, he wanted to know what was going on. I said, we're hit, we had to bail out. About that time, the navigator came back and said not to bail out, that we're going to try and, Powell was going to try and bring it back across the Rhine. We didn't quite make it, so he said, we're going to have to wind the Bombay doors up because the electrical part was all shot out. So then Targalier, Sergeant Washkow, and I went on that little catwalk about that wide, and we wound the Bombay doors up by hand. And the plane was on fire all the time, and we didn't know whether it was going to blow up or not. You know, when we were hit, we still had our bombs, and by rights we should have blown up. Or the plane should have, from the gasoline and everything. You know. So,
At this point, were all the bombs gone out of the plane?
yeah, we jettisoned them all. And that's when we wound up the bomb bay doors, mainly because to crash land or belly land, you had to have a smooth belly on it.
Yeah.
Well, the bomb bay doors would be sticking down. The same way as the lower ball. And we had to jettison that. We had to do certain things to that to drop it. So we did all that, and then we didn't, like I say, didn't quite make it across the Rhine. And that's when the navigator come back and said, prepare for a crash landing. And that's when we got in the position I was telling you, you know. And, you just put your head between your knees, sitting down, you put your hands like that, waiting for the, you know.
Were you strapped in?
No, no,
Wow.
no straps, nothing.
Now, you were about 21 years old at this time.
I was 20.
20.
Well, you must have flown inside there when that thing hit the ground.
No, when he hit it, he didn't hit it real hard, but he come in with great power, and we hit and just went up in the air again. He didn't come down like that,
Yes, sir.
but he more or less slid
Grazed,
in, like, you
yeah.
So
know.
it was kind of gliding a little bit.
Yeah, right. And we felt it, and then we knew we were going back up again. And then we come down again, I don't know how many times. And we were waiting for the crash, you know, because we didn't know where we were, or you couldn't look out.
Yeah.
But we slid to grinding halt, and it was smoking something fierce. And we all jumped out. You practice all this. And within about, I'd say 5 seconds, all of us were out of that plane. We just dove out of the waist and whatever parts was open, you know.
Yeah.
So we got out and we started to march. We saw these soldiers way out in the distance, approximately maybe a mile away, and we thought they were Americans or the Allies. And as we got closer, the navigators told us, he said, no, they're Allies. So as we got a little closer, we found out they weren't. We heard one of the soldiers yelling, "Achtung." Well, right then I said, yeah, they're Allies, all right. We said, geez, they're Germans.
Yeah.
And so we started to run back to the plane. Well, they started shooting at us. And just bullets flying all over the place. And I still don't think that they'd try to hit us. But anyhow, we were going to go back in the plane and shoot it out. But I don't know what made me think. All of a sudden I said, we can't. I said, we jettisoned all our ammunition, you know, to try to fly further, to lighten the plane. So that was kaput, that part. German also.
Yeah, that's German. You learned some German over
we
there.
all knew about kaput. So
No way.
we decided, well, there's nothing to do but to give up, because all we had was 45 revolvers. And the Germans come up to us, hit by 20 of them, I guess, in around 20, 25. And they said to raise your hands. And as I told you, I raised my hand and my 45 was still in my hand. Like that, you know. I thought, oh, geez, how dumb can you be? But he didn't hit me. But they line us up, and this one soldier, German soldier, started hitting, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 on this side of me. He never hit me for some reason. He come up to me, I guess I looked too sad, I don't know. But anyhow, he was screaming and yelling, and
You had a lot of prayers being said for you, that's fine.
somebody up there was watching out after me. So, I'm trying to think.
They take your gun?
Oh yeah, well, what happened there, the soldiers started yelling and screaming when he was hitting us. And so after he was finished doing that, the sergeant there, the equivalent of an American sergeant, stopped him from hitting anymore. And so then I turned to the navigator, who could understand some German. I said, what's he yelling about and hitting us for? He said, well, from what I can gather, he's yelling that we bombed his house and killed his wife and children. So I could understand then why he was doing what he did. And so they gathered us together, and of course they took my 45 from me, and they start marching us into this little town of St. Goshausen, Sergeant Goshausen.
Did they give you any information on German rank, so you could tell what rank you were dealing with if you were
No,
captured?
we pretty much knew.
You could figure out who was in
Yeah, we
charge.
pretty much knew. But we did have, they took, in England they took pictures of us, like a sport coat and tie and that, down to here. They took pictures of us, and we had those on us so that we could escape, or you know, if we crashed there and we could get away, we could show whoever was around, the Germans, that there's a picture of me there, you know. We had to get rid of our uniforms though.
So the picture in your sport coat wouldn't have your rank on it?
No, no.
So that would be just a
civilian
photograph, yeah.
Yeah.
That was smart.
But anyhow, when they caught us and they start marching us into St. Goshausen, we decided we'd better get rid of those because they could say we were spies, you know. And so they marched us through this little town. Like I told you, the people were standing out there and yelling at us and hitting us with sticks and stones and what have you. And they put us in this little jail overnight. And the people would come during the evening and open that little sliding door, you know, like they had in jail at one time, about yay big. They'd open it up and gawk at us, you know. And
To see what Americans look like.
yeah. So the next morning, they took us out and lined us up against the wall, and I figured, well, this is it. They're gonna, and they'd hold a gun to your head or here. But what they were doing is, I figured they were just going to shoot us and that's it. But what they were doing, they were searching us for anything they could get. And then after that, they started to march us to toward DULOG.
Could they speak English?
No, not really. No,
They didn't have somebody there who could say.
not right there.
What were you doing here? They didn't
Later.
ask you about
Later,
the plane.
they did.
Or anything?
Nothing. No. They did when they interrogated us up at the DULOG.
Do you know what that was near?
Wetzlar.
Westlawn.
Wetzlar. W-E-T-Z-L-A-R, something like that.
Okay, so you marched from...
From there at St. Goshausen, part of the way to DULOG up there at Wetzlar, and part of the way by train.
Okay.
And when they got us there, I can remember sitting outside the barracks, German barracks, the headquarters, and they gave us some water, some soup. I can remember that. Just a bowl of pretty much watery soup. And they took us in individually into this commander, and he had an interrogator that could speak English. And he questioned us on who we were, where we came from, and how many, and this, that, you name it. And of course we were instructed and drilled enough to know that we just give our name, rank, and serial number. And he asked me again, I can remember, and I gave my name, rank, and serial number again, and he just got real mad and yelled, and he told the sergeant, he said, get him the hell out of there, or words to that effect. And so then we were there for a couple of days, and then they started to march us from there to Nuremberg prison camp. I think that was 11.
Yeah, we can show that. You figure you ended up going about 200 miles.
I would venture to say 200 miles
And
altogether.
This was a forced march.
Forced march.
Part of it, small part on the train, like cattle cars, standing, right?
Yeah, they call them 40 and 8s.
And then most of the way marching.
I'd say half and half, really. Half the way marching, half by train. And the reason we couldn't go the whole way by train is a lot of the tracks were blown up.
No, yeah.
See? So then that's as far as they go, and we get out and start marching.
Okay, so you ended up, you started off coming down by,
St. Gothard.
mhm.
Let me see, where was
Here's Frankfurt over here. So you were up
that?
in this area? Mhm. Along the Rhine?
Yeah. Up here. Here we are, here.
Okay, and then
Right.
from there you went to a small camp of some sort, or a place
No,
where they
a
interrogated
jail.
you, a jail.
And from there we went up to Wetzlar, Germany. Now that's quite a ways up here.
So you went way north then?
Yeah, right. We went north, and I can't see it right now.
You might not even be on the map.
It was a fair sized
Okay.
place.
Okay, so you're up north somewhere, and then
Yeah,
you
and-
end up marching
marching
down here to Nuremberg.
Nuremberg, yeah. Part of the way by train and part of the way marching.
Wow,
And-
that's quite a distance.
Yeah.
And then from Nuremberg, they marched us over to Moosburg, which is 20 miles north of Munich. Where's Munich?
Munich is down here.
Okay, all right, Munich, all right,
Can you imagine how far that is? That is a long
Yes.
way. That took us a long way to drive that.
yeah.
This is
Well,
on foot.
But the reason for that was they knew where the Allies were, and they
so
were
they're
trying
getting
to,
you away from there.
yeah, they were trying to keep us from getting, liberated.
All right, now Dachau concentration camp is near Munich.
Yeah,
And
here it
you
is.
ended up,
No, it isn't. Yeah, here it is. Here's
It's-
Dachau.
yeah, it's north of Munich.
Yeah.
And you ended up very near Dachau, but
Right in-
didn't,
right in
didn't
here.
realize it at the time.
No, it's right in here, Moosburg. Now this map doesn't show it because Moosburg wasn't that big. But there's Munich, and there's only 20 miles from Moosburg and about 12 miles from Dachau. And it was probably right in here somewhere,
Mhm.
which doesn't show there. It may show it on this map, I don't know.
Mhm. It might not go.
Uh,
No, you go ahead and try to look for it.
but anyhow,
Why didn't they use trucks?
they didn't have the gasoline bulb.
You probably needed what they had for the war.
What they were doing, they were burning wood and that, and getting they put alcohol from the wood, and they were using that to run the trucks. That's how bad they were off they were, and you could see that some of the trucks smoking from that wood burning and what have you, and so that's the reason they didn't have trucks to take us. Of course, there's too many of us anyhow, because in Moosburg there's either, what did I say, Lois, 25 or 35,000 of us there at Moosburg prison camp.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
I never knew they had that many.
Yeah, and they kept us separated from the Russians. They didn't like the Russians at all. They didn't like us, but they hated the Russians. And so they kept the Americans and the French and
This camp had buildings?
some buildings and some tents. And I forget which. I think Nuremberg, if I'm not mistaken, it was all tents, and part of Moosburg was tents. And you just slept side by side, almost squeezed together. And you just had some straw to lay on. That was it. But, I forget how many days we were there, and then we.
And again, that was the day you were shot down was in
March the 9th,
March the 9th.
and then April the 29th, we were liberated.
Okay, so you were there
What, 52 days?
52 days.
As the papers show you, I got $1 a day for each day.
That's right.
And
Now, you went several days without food at a
oh
time,
yes,
though,
different times,
because the Germans themselves by that time had little,
very low.
and
Yeah.
you had less.
Yes,
Because whatever care packages came through the Red Cross, the Germans would take.
they'd
good
roughly
portion of
take
it.
half of them and give us the other half.
Yeah.
So we'd share one Red Cross box maybe to 4 us prisoners, and sometimes we get American Red Cross parcels, sometimes Canadian, sometimes English. And English and Canadians and us also. We wanted American because we had American cigarettes, you see. And the English had tried to trade off theirs bloody, as the Aussies and the English always said bloody. They're bloody cigarettes for American cigarettes. And so we'd get maybe 10 or 12 packs of cigarettes in a box, and we'd divide them up. And sometimes we'd give a couple to the German guards, and they treat you nicer. And they did. They treated us about as nice as they could, without telling us, well, you can go,
Why didn't you try to escape on your march? Tell us what
Why?
you decided. Yeah.
Well, we decided the German Wehrmacht, that was the German Home Guard, they were the ones that caught us, and luckily so, because they were the older ones. They weren't the fighters. They weren't the SS or the Gestapo or the Hitler Youth. What were you asking again now?
No, I just wondered why you didn't escape.
Oh,
Try to escape.
Why we didn't escape?
Yeah.
Okay, the German guards told us that we can just try to escape anytime we wanted, but they said if you drop out and the SS troopers caught you, or the Hitler Youth, which is really bad, those guys, little kids, like 12, 14-year-old kids. I mean, they were something. If they caught you, they'd kill you right away. So that eliminated us trying to,
It was safer to stay with them.
You're right, yeah, the closer we stayed with them, that's what they told us, the better off we'd be. So that was the main reason. And on one of the marches, like I was telling Cheryl, we were straight bombed by our own P-47 pursuit planes. And the reason they did that is we had the Red Cross flags in the front and the back of our marching units, and which designated to the Americans pilots that we were POWs. Well, the Germans caught on to that, so they. So anyhow, like I say, the Germans caught on to that. So in their retreats, they would put Red Cross flags in the front and the rear of theirs. Well, the Allies, Americans, which I found out from this Rich Orth from up Coachville, he was a P-47 pilot. He told us why they strafed us. He said, we found out that the Germans in their retreats was using that for an escape, using what we were using. So he said, we thought you were Germans escaping, and that's the reason we strafed you. And I don't know how many was killed in that they're strafing.
By friendly fire, by Americans.
Quite a few of us. I wouldn't want them, but I can remember diving into a swamp, and bullets flying overhead, hitting the limbs. You could hear them, the way they hit. And boy, you just crawled down there as close to the water as you could. And when it was over, we went back up, and the Germans yelled at us to get back. We started marching, and every so often I'd see one of the marched prisoners laying there, killed. I don't know how many there were.
Now, you had somebody in your group that went down with you, the young guy, who had a hard time on the march that you had to kind of help him.
Oh, yeah, the tail gunner we helped. He was ready to drop out. We call him the child of the group, of our plane. He was only 19, so he was the youngest. And he was going to drop out. He said, I can't go on any further. So Sergeant Waskow and I said, you are, we'll help you. And we took what little pack he had. Waskow carried part of it, and I carried part. And we put our arms under his and helped him along, and we got him through.
Tell us what I know you didn't have much to eat, and there were several days you would go without food at a time. When you did get food, what would you have?
Most of the time, we'd get a slice of German black bread. And
One time you got a cup of something you thought it was going to be soup, or?
It was watery soup,
Wow.
really. But the black bread was they said part of it was made with sawdust. And they bring loads of it in on a back of a wagon that was out in the field with horse manure and everything else, you know. And they just put big loads of that in there, just filled it full. And they'd get one loaf to X amount of us prisoners, and we'd wind up maybe with a slice. Some days we were lucky we got 2 slices, and some days we didn't get any. And then of course when we got Red Cross parcels, we divvied those up, and in those they had Hershey's concentrated chocolate, and 1 bar was good enough to sustain you for 3 days. So there'd be like maybe 1 or 2 Hershey bars in one of those. We'd break them up, divvy them up, you know. So when we didn't have any food, we nibbled on that a little bit. So that kept us going, but we were pretty hungry. And so I'll wait till Cheryl comes back, if you want to turn it off. So anyhow, what I failed to mention, I think it was at the Nuremberg prison camp, there was a pilot there, a prisoner, had been a prisoner for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. He was strafing Berlin, and he got shot down. And the Germans got him out of the plane. It was on fire and everything. And to look at him, it scared the heck out of you. They fixed him up in the hospital and what have you. But his face was just smooth. No nose, no ears. His eyes were wide open. He couldn't close them. No hair. Everything was just burnt. It was just like the back of your hand. That's how his face was. It was really scary. And I thought, geez, once again, you know, I pity myself, and I look at something like that, you know, where I didn't even get a scratch.
A miracle, actually.
Yeah. So, getting back to, I don't know if you were here when I said about the Hershey bars, the concentrated Hershey bars we got in those packages. One of those bars could sustain you for 3 days. And, I mean, when we didn't get a piece of bread or a cup of watery soup, we saved that bar for that reason. And that kept us going a little bit.
They didn't ever take it from you. They let
No,
you keep whatever.
Well, they had already taken roughly half the Red Cross parcel to start with. So, and when we got to Moosburg, I don't know what day we got there, how long it was. We were there longer than any other prison camp. In some of the camps, they separated the officers from the enlisted people. But there, everybody was just mixed together. And like I say, they kept the Russians, for some reason, separate from the rest of us. So, we knew the Germans were getting closer.
I wanted to ask you, what would you say was the highest ranking American prisoner that you encountered? Do you remember seeing an officer of a high rank that was a prisoner? Or was everybody like a private or a lieutenant?
No, you had them up to, like the pilots, captains. And a lot of cases, you know, before they were captured, they threw their rank away. Like if they're a major, you know, the oak leaf cluster. Silver was a lieutenant colonel, you know. Okay, well anyhow, a captain was 2 bars, silver bars, a lieutenant with 1 silver bar, a gold bar was a second lieutenant. Well, they'd take them and throw them away so that the Germans wouldn't know they were officers, see. And as far as the Germans were concerned, they were just privates because they had no rank. So that's the reason you didn't see any majors or colonels.
Could you talk freely among yourselves, the prisoners?
Did I what?
Could you talk freely? Did you?
Oh yeah.
You were able to talk and communicate.
But we used to, when the never forget, had roll call twice a day, morning and evening. And it's German colonel would go up and down the line, you know. He'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And he'd go 1, 2, 3, 7, 3, 1, 20, 7, 20. And we'd ridicule him, you know. We'd mock him. And he'd get real mad. And we shouldn't have done that because he could have, you know, done anything.
Yeah.
But, this is what we do. That's how learned we were. But we knew that the Americans were getting closer because we could hear the biggies in the background, the 155s shooting, you know, you could hear the bangs. And each day they got closer. You could hear it louder and louder and louder. And then it got to the point where we saw, I was telling you, that P-51 that came over, wiggle with his wings like that, tell us we're about to be liberated, so to speak. He was friendly and that the Allies were coming. It wasn't very long after that, maybe hours after that.
Hours, wow.
That they broke through. And
You said 155s. Were these the tank guns?
no, they're artillery.
Artillery 155.
Yeah. Now we took it to be 155 because they were that's the biggest one that the Americans had at that time. They had 105s and 155s. Now on tanks, I think they had as high as 105s. Maybe the big ones. The
155 is the one we saw.
The Germans,
the other day.
it might have been a Sherman or a Patton tank, had 155s towards. They were the latest.
Yeah.
But then General Patton was later, well, I found out, he was the one who broke through because he found out somehow or other through intelligence that his nephew or brother-in-law, some close relation of his, was in this camp where I was. And he broke through the lines, you know, the blood and guts.
Yeah.
Actually, apparently he wasn't supposed to, I don't know. But he broke through and liberated us. And of course the German guards and that all gave up. That's where I got my Gestapo band that I lost somewhere along the line. But I took it off from one of the soldiers.
Oh.
And I had it up until we moved from one house in Thorndale to the other, and I must have, in the process of throwing stuff away, that must have got thrown away.
Was it something you wore on your arm?
You've seen those red with
it
the
wasn't.
with Gestapo,
Gee.
you know, one of these
Yeah.
things, you know, that's
That's
Gestapo
their armband,
band.
yeah.
Well, I got one of those.
Oh. Huh.
So anyhow, the General Patton, we were lying down in our tents, and most of us never got up. And Patton came through within, I don't know, within about 10 yards of us, something like that, 20 yards. And with his pearl-handled revolvers, you know, his shiny hat, helmet, which you're not supposed to have, you know, and his shiny boots and the whole bit. And some of them did get up to see him. I wish I would have known.
Mm-hmm. You got to be that close, but you were sick at that. I mean,
Yeah,
you were really.
all of us
You're
were sick,
weakened at that
and
time from all that marching.
I didn't feel like
and
getting up. I
Yeah.
just took them to be liberated at that time. So then they had us there for a day or two, and they set up a delousing camp place and put us through the delouses. And they tried to take I had an A3. I forget what they call it. Flying jacket. It was a green with the fur on. And they wanted to take that from me. I said, no, you're not. I said, I had that all through prison camp, and I'm taking it home with me. So they said, well, let us delouse it first. So they deloused it, and I did manage to bring it home with me.
You still have it?
No, it's long since been gone. I wore it out, I guess.
Now, you wore the same clothes from the time you were on that plane all the way through till when you were liberated.
Yeah, I had blisters in the bottom of my feet from my heel to my toes, and athlete's feet between my toes, just cracked and bleeding. And you couldn't bath or anything, nothing. And once in a while we hit some water, and we got soap in those Red Cross parcels, and we were able to wash in I remember somebody had a pair of scissors and we cut each other's hair. I was a barber one day and I cut somebody's hair. It was terrible. But that's how we cut our hair.
Did you shave?
Once in a great while we got to shave.
It's surprising they would allow you to have scissors and shaving gear and all of that.
Those were pretty well hidden.
Oh.
They didn't know really the way that we had them. But towards the end of the war, they didn't care what we had.
They knew they were they were done.
In other words, they tried to treat us extra nice, knowing that they were going to be captured, and we could tell our own people how nice they were to us. You know, they take it easy on us. Then after that, they put us on a train. Why, I don't know why we went to Reims, France, but we did. And I think it was May the 2nd, I think I was telling you, that they signed the armistice. General Eisenhower and the German generals, I don't know who all.
At Reims. They were
at Reims, France.
Yeah,
and that's
you were there.
In a railroad car.
Huh.
Is where they signed the armistice. And we were in a railroad car too, but we weren't right in the same track as them. And from there they took us to Le Havre, France. Now I don't remember whether they called that Camp Lucky Strike or was it Camp Lucky Strike at Fort Dix, one or the other. And that's where we ordered our hospital ship to the United States.
So you came back on a ship?
Yeah, on a boat.
You didn't want to be brought back on a plane, that's for
No,
sure.
well, I wouldn't have gone anyhow.
That's what I mean.
But anyhow, they put us on a hospital ship, and we didn't have to do anything on that ship unless we wanted to. Well, I wanted to try to do something, so I can remember I had a long stick with toilet paper, rolls of toilet paper, and I'd go around different places with toilet paper when I wasn't sick. But I was actually sick 13 days out of 13. And you get down that, I forget what they call it, down the bottom of the ship to get something to eat. No, to get something to eat. And I'd have it on the tray, and I'd start eating. I'd get halfway back up the steps and up it'd come.
That was seasickness. It was
Yeah.
so rough, a rough crossing.
Seasickness.
And that's all on top of what you've been through, and then to be seasick on top of that.
Well, that was from the stomach.
Yeah.
They shrunk, you know.
Right. And you had instructions. We saw your sheet on taking it easy on your food at first, and the guys didn't want to do that.
Yeah, we ate. That was over in, I think it was Le Havre. They told us not to eat very much because our stomachs were shrunk and we'd throw up and what have you. But we didn't believe that because we were hungry. And so we ate all of it, and we paid for it. And like I tell Cheryl, while we were in prison camp, we wrote out the meals we wanted when we got home. You know, and boy, we had everything. There's T-bone steaks, you name it, mashed potatoes, you name it. We had it on there.
Oh, what it was neat to read your letter to your mother after, you know, when you wrote to tell her you're okay and you're on your way home, and you wrote near the end, you couldn't wait to have her home cooking.
Yeah. So then we get back to Fort Dix, I think it was, and they processed us there and everything, and that's where I got my furlough for, I think it was 90 days I got. And that was to get me settled. Well, I didn't settle very much. Then when that was over with, they gave me my orders for a week's R&R down at Miami Beach. Well, that wasn't R&R. That was 1 week of drinking.
Rowdiness and roughhousing.
I tell Cheryl that one of the guys, and we were at Collins Avenue, 29th and Collins Avenue. I'll never forget that. And that's where the headquarters was for all this. And one of the guys was there had a convertible, it was a Pontiac, I believe, at that time. And we heard on the radio the Japanese had given up. And we got in a convertible, and we just raced as fast as we could from Miami Beach over to Miami. Well, the MPs caught us. They took us back, and the commander there, who was over us, he looked at us and he said, "You SBs, if you weren't former prisoner of war," he said, "I'd throw the book at you." He said, "Get the hell out of here." I'll never forget that. And boy, I mean, we put a load on. Oh, we get drunk. You know, just celebrating.
Sure.
And that, like I say, that was supposed to be rest and recuperation, which was anything but. And from there, we got our orders. And we were each taken individually to the SIR, major, captain or major, and he had a map there and a book of all the places where we could go. We were allowed to pick any place we wanted to in the United States. Only being a former POW, we were allowed to do that. So I picked New Cumberland again. And he looked at it and checked it out and everything, and he said, "I'm sorry, Sergeant," but he said, "That's all filled up." He said, "Do you have another preference?" So he showed me where I could go. I saw Lockburn Air Base, Columbus, Ohio. And I knew my sister was at Youngstown, Sister Mary. And I said, "Lockburn Air Base." He's okay. So that's where I went. And I was there for a couple months.
How far was that from Aunt Mary?
There was a couple hours by train.
You were able to go see her
Yeah.
and everything?
And from, I thought I'd stay there till I got discharged. Not so. They goofed me. And they sent me down to Smyrna Army Air Base in Smyrna, Tennessee, which was the you-know-what of the world. Oh, that was terrible. And
that was punishment.
That was cool punishment,
Yeah.
yes. But we tried to get into...
What month would that have been now in the year? You've been 90
November,
days at one
December,
place?
yeah. It was sometime in the summer months, May or June or July, because it was later than that.
Yeah, you got out in November of
Yeah,
44.
because I got out in November, so I
Did
was only down in Smyrna about a month or two at the most.
So it was October.
It happened after Japan
Yeah.
surrendered, which was what,
August,
Yeah.
August you dropped the bombs, so probably
So-
September.
And that's where I flew one more time, but I was telling you. On C-47 we were flying discharges to Camp Atterbury, Indiana. And I was the engineer that day on this plane, and I was in the radio room. I'll never forget it. And this one sergeant was getting discharged, come up to me and he said, "Hey, Sarge, how about a drink?" He pulled out a pint of whiskey. I'll never forget it. I said, "Yeah, I'll have a drink." And I had a drink. But anyhow, we got to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, and we almost hit another plane. And I thought, this is it, no more. So when we flew back, I went down to the squadron commander at Smyrna Air Base, and I went in, saluted. I said, "Captain," I said, "I want to drown myself." He looked at me and said, "You can't drown yourself. You're not allowed." I said, "Oh, yes, I am." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I was a former prisoner of war." He said, "Okay." He said, "Okay, you can drown yourself." And I drowned myself. That's the last time I was ever in a plane.
So you went home by train then, or when you got out?
I got my discharge papers. I got my notice to get my discharge. I went by train to Washington, D.C. And from Washington, D.C., I got a bus or something to Andrews Air Force Base.
That's in,
That big one that,
Yeah.
where all the
yeah, in DC.
congressmen and the president and all of them, And that's where I got discharged from, Andrews Air Force Base. It's on my discharge. You'll see it when I send it to you. And from there, I got a train to Tyrone, which is Altoona and Tyrone. And I got off of there and couldn't get into Osceola, and I stayed, I think, overnight. And they had a USO club there, and Fred Waring's mother was handling. Fred Waring was from Tyrone. The
Yeah, he
singer
was the
had the
band
orchestra.
leader, right? Or the
Yeah. Well, that's where he was from. And he lived there.
Oh.
and his mother was still there and had this USO club, and Fred Waring contributed the money for it. And they would stop, and the police there would come in and see who all was staying there overnight, and they'd go out and they'd stop every car to find out which one was going over the mountain. And the next morning, they stopped one that was going to Phillipsburg. In other words, up through Sandy Ridge into Phillipsburg. And so I got on that and went into Phillipsburg, and then I got a bus from there to Osceola.
So they were hitching you rides.
Yeah. And I can remember I got off the bus, there's some of the VFW members. They stopped, they were there for every bus that stopped to see who all veterans were getting off. And they grabbed me to take me over to sign me up to VFW. Then I walked down to Hirsch's. That's where Huey was the clerk there, the head of it. And I remember Mr. Hirsch telling me, he shook hands and was so glad to see me, and told Huey, he said, Huey, you take Andrew home. So they had this not a pickup, but an enclosed truck. And Huey took me on home. And Mom, I got out, and that's when I saw
She knew about when you were going to be home. But
yeah, I told her in that one.
Right.
And
so they were all.
I'm not sure whether I
glad to
called
see you.
from Tower Room to tell her or not. I forget now.
Now, have you ever been back to Germany?
Germany? No.
Do you have interest that you would want to?
They hadn't built a bridge.
That's ships.
No more ships, no more
No,
planes.
no.
Well, that's
She's
an
trying
interesting
to
story.
entice me to go to Ireland with her, and no way. She said, well, we'll dope you up. You can't dope me enough to go. How dopey as it is, I don't want any more dope. No, I just won't go.
No, we appreciate your telling us
Yeah.
all that, the whole story.
There's a few things that I forgot or forgot to mention, but for the most part, that was pretty much it. At first, I thought it was General Patch's 7th Army, 14th Armored Division that liberated us. But since then, I found out it was General Patton's 3rd Army that broke through and liberated us. Like I said, because of his relations was in there.
Mm-hmm.
To our knowledge, he's the only living member of that group.
Yeah, I'm not, to my knowledge. And there's not too many Second World War POWs left. Throughout I know in Cheshire County, there's the